and welcome to Culture Talks. We are Heather and Shaila, the regional managers of Crown's Global Skills team. I'm Heather, I'm based in the UK, and I oversee programmes in the EMEA and the Americas regions.
Hello, I'm Shaila, I'm based in Hong Kong, and I oversee programmes in Asia Pacific.
Today on Culture Talks, we are doing things a little bit differently.
We are. So last episode, we looked at identity, partners, and the culture of being you, and how being a partner on assignment is more challenging because you have more pieces of your life jigsaw to rebuild.
Yes.
So today is a season special. We are going to narrow down onto that one piece of that jigsaw, friendship, and how culture talks in this key aspect of our lives.
Yes, absolutely. So why are we doing this special now, and why should businesses care about something that they don't often care about? So Crown recently carried out a survey on current assignees from our top clients. And I don't think it will come as a shock to learn that the main reason that people are reluctant to move abroad is leaving loved ones behind. Over a third of people selected distance from family and friends as one of their main concerns.
Right, and supporting the point that we were making last episode is the fact that the survey found that the joint number one area that impacted families' mental health was experiencing loneliness.
Yeah, absolutely. Just makes sense.
And the results also showed that for assignees, lack of personal networks was the number two area that impacted their mental health, behind all the stresses of a new job.
Yeah, totally. So really, being able to navigate friendships and culture, being able to build back those jigsaw pieces, it is really vital ultimately for assignment success. And we were speculating as we were putting this together that it might not just be about relocating. There is so much more talk about loneliness and people feeling more isolated, like in general, in societies, and often more in societies where people are online more.
Absolutely. So many more people, are working from home now.
Totally.
More of us are talking with people at work in our free time, online and on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it easier not to interact with those immediately or physically around us.
Yeah.
And I think this is especially true if we don't know the people around us. If we have to start afresh and make new connections, it's hard.
Yeah.
You have to make more of an effort. And if you have that safety net of friends online, it's tempting to stay in your comfort zone, right?
Yeah, definitely. And yet, the reality is that if you don't push yourself out of your comfort zone, that in the physical world around you, you will not have that network and it will feel lonely.
Yeah.
And what is also true is that when you are making friends within another culture, that is when you build a really deep and intrinsic motivation to want to understand, that culture. When you really like someone and you're trying to navigate, liking that person, and you will want to understand what's happening and understand at a much deeper level. But making friends is hard. It's hard enough, even when you understand all of these implicit rules. What about when the rules are different? What even is a friend to you and your culture? How do you show your friendship? What is okay for friends to do and not to do? When I think back to my time living internationally, I learnt my biggest cultural lessons when trying and sometimes failing, to make friends. Those were the biggest things that I took away.
Wow, that sounds a bit deep.
We'll have to, over a glass of wine, Shaila, we'll talk about
it. For sure. So I guess this is why it's important for businesses, right? Often the focus for companies is on understanding the cultural norms of relationships in order to do business, to negotiate, to sell, to focus on forwarding a business objective. It's important, but if sometimes a little one-dimensional, but understanding friendships and how culture talks within them not only will improve business relationships, but it will also ease the assignment adjustment on a personal level, and maybe even increase assignment uptake.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into it, Shaila. Let's have a look at whether cultures define friendship differently.
Okay, so the Oxford Dictionary defined friendship using words such as closeness, informality, mutual trust, and intimacy.
Whereas, and we asked one of our trainers, friendship in China involves respect, loyalty, obligation, and honor.
Oh, interesting. Obligation and honor, they wouldn't have been the first words that came to my mind. I'm like, and guess, and yeah,
Mm,
yeah, they're so important, right?
yeah, yeah, definitely for me too. Informality, same sense of humor, all of those things would be the things for me. But actually, maybe we use different words, right? Have a look at, and you're going to get an insight into my television viewing habits. Have a look at any like trashy reality TV programs. Think Real Housewives. Think Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. There's so much fighting in between friendship groups there about having each other's back. So maybe that's duty. Maybe there's a duty there. There's an obligation that is present there.
Yeah, I agree. So maybe this is how culture talks here. Maybe all of those elements, respect, trust, intimacy, obligation, are important in friendship across cultures. But
Hmm.
maybe whether obligation and respect or informality and intimacy are higher on your list comes down to your culture.
Yeah, well, that feels quite big. So yeah, the order changes, maybe the words change, and how you show it in your behavior is
Right,
what
right.
is what you see. Hmm.
Yeah, right. So let's look at saving face. It's well known as an important part of respect in Chinese culture,
Yeah,
right? So as a friend, even if you're furious with your pal, you would never tell them what's what in public.
right. And can you imagine? Unlike Real Housewives, where that seems to be all that people do, it's very public about, that's where you're going to have your fights.
Well, can you imagine if the next Netflix reality show had lots of different cultures trying to make friends? I don't know.
I
Would any,
mean, that would be very interesting scientifically. Like, would anyone watch it? I don't know.
I know.
Um, but I think as well, when you think about friendships, in this analysis that we're doing, you couldn't replicate real life, could you? Because
No.
in friend, when you have so many different groups of friends,
Mm,
and there's different expectations of the different friends. So, yeah, I
yeah.
don't know if we're going to commission it, Shaila. Sorry, I'm out.
Well, you said about those expectations, and that's,
Mm,
it's true. But actually, that's very culturally different too, because,
yeah,
grouping your friends, some cultures have very clear lines. Example, work friends, gym friends, like in the
yeah,
US and India. But
yeah.
for Brits, especially for big occasions, I actually had this come up with me recently when I was planning a very big party of mine
A very
and
big
looking at
party.
the guest list. And I was thinking, who's going to be on my guest list? I've got my
Yeah.
school friends, my mum group friends, work friends, or everyone,
Mm, yeah. I mean, I hope I was on that list.
Of course, absolutely. We're friends now more than colleagues. If you were in Hong Kong, I would have totally expected you to be there, no doubt.
Yeah, I'd have jumped on a flight. But you were also saying that some of your friends who have different cultural backgrounds to you found it unusual that you were thinking like about the different groups and about who was going to come because for them the different groups in their lives just don't usually mix.
Yeah, I actually asked you, I was wondering about that,
Yeah,
whether this was a
yeah,
British thing. I just couldn't have had a big birthday party with just one of those groups.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about just you wanting to have as many people as possible at your big birthday party, Shayla. But also, you were navigating expectations in friendships as well, right? Because expectations are so present, but not discussed very often.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, if people knew you were having a party, you're thinking about who would you expect to come. But also, like you said to me, I would have expected you to be there.
Mhm.
But also, you haven't had to navigate, and you always have to navigate who is expecting to be invited. There's all of us sitting in global skills going, well, where's my invite? You're friendly with Joe, right? Would you have invited Joe if she was in Hong
Of
Kong?
course, of
Yeah,
course.
you got to say that. But it's always there, right? Parties, funerals, weddings. You know, who is going to be expected to be there?
Mm.
But it's also, it's the other aspects. It's not just like events like that. Think about your home and who is invited
Oh
into your
yeah.
home.
Hmm.
That's very culturally driven.
Yeah.
In Brazil, we were talking to Stephanie, who's on our team, and she was talking about how close friends in Brazil just have an open invite, like an open invite to invitation any time of day or night. Whereas in Asia, it's far more unusual to have someone come to your house. You meet your friends out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I guess that's something for our audience to think about is like,
Mm.
what expectations are at play on your guest list and what cultural rules are there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So let's think about this. Let's move on. What is a friend for? So there's a book called Friendship by Lydia Denworth. And within that, she quotes a scenario that I'm going to pose to you, Shaila. So scientists posed to different nationalities this scenario to see how culture impacts on the responses. So you ready for this, Shaila?
Mm-hmm.
You are a passenger in a car driven by a close friend and they get hit by a pedestrian. Sorry, they hit a pedestrian. You know that your friend was going well above the speed limit. There are no witnesses. Your friend's lawyer says that if you testify under oath that your friend's speed was within the limit, that you could save your friend from any serious consequences. What would you do?
Oh, this is a really tricky one. Oh,
Isn't it?
yeah. Okay, but maybe. I guess it might depend on which friend it is or whether it was family.
You're going to get so much flack from your friends now. Would I be on that list? Let's move on to the results and skim over that. So because the results are really interesting. Fewer than 10% of Americans would lie to protect their friend. 30% of French and Japanese people and 70% of Venezuelans would lie to protect their friend. How fascinating is that?
Wow. Wow. And actually, that makes me think about an Indian film that I actually watched recently with a really similar scenario. The friends bribe the police officer to get out of the situation. And this
Yeah.
is, a classic example of using corruption, but it's still the friend stepping up for the one in trouble, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And do you know what? I don't think I don't think I would lie. Sorry, pals. Like if you're thinking about doing something, I don't think I could do it. I would want to. I would want to protect my friends, but it's not right. Like I've got that internal sense of, but it's not right. My friend did wrong.
Mm,
And yet, when I think about my experience with friendships and friendship groups in Egypt in particular, I think the answer would be absolutely. When's the trial? Because in
mm,
Egypt, once you are in a friendship group, once you are in the inner circle, that group, they are your safety. They are the keepers of your secrets. They
mm,
step up for you and they have very, very strong obligations to each other.
mm,
I mean, it could be that there are just more scenarios that come up where it is called upon.
mm,
But yeah, it's interesting. And actually, it's interesting when you add in India and Egypt to that very high percentage so that scientists found of Venezuelans who would lie, because actually what they found was that it's linked to economic and social stability. The more stability, the more that people rely on state and institutions, the less they rely on friends and connections, and therefore the less they would, they feel the need to protect each other.
fascinating. That's fascinating, those
Yeah,
differences. And yeah,
yeah,
and so I guess what's also true is that regardless of culture, when there isn't that state or government support, I mean, like let's look at that, all the recent flooding issues in Spain, and
hmm
and
hmm
you recently shared, Heather, in your hometown that you had some
yeah,
floodings there as well, and
yeah.
all the friends and connections came together. They just came together and took over, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's true that even in cultures where there are normally state institutions that will protect you, but it's human nature when that safety is gone, when the chips are down, people want to help people. Yeah, we definitely saw that here during the flooding. And that's the good news about making friends across cultures. People want to connect and support each other. A great tip for navigating how culture talks in friendships is one that we've actually mentioned a few times on this podcast. Not that we're trying to repeat ourselves, but the tip is call it out. Be brave, be
Mm.
vulnerable. Say you're finding it hard to make friends. Say that you don't get it. Apologize maybe that you might get it wrong. People will want to help you. Mistakes will be forgiven.
Absolutely. Even Simon Sinek says it, he says
Mm,
so. You build trust not by helping people, but by help asking for help.
yeah, I love that. I love that. Um, and another piece of good news is that making new friends was in the top 3 benefits of living overseas from that recent Crown survey that we were talking about. So, in this season special, we have explored friendship and how culture talks within it. Even though culture talks in the definitions of friendship and what is most important, even though cultures differ in expectations of friends and what friends are for, at the end of the day, friendships are the key to really wanting to understand and adapt to that culture, and they are how you will adapt into that culture and do it best. If you have loved this topic as much as us, but are not ready to fully commit to an entire book, which, tell you a secret, I didn't either, there is the Lydia Denworth book on friendship, but you can also read a short article, which is very well written, about how different cultures define good friends by Olga Kazan. And also have a look at that YouTube video and see Simon Sinek and Trevor Noah talk about why we should be taking friendships more seriously. And I tell you what, Shaila, I look forward to when they invite us onto their next talk about this. Now they'll listen to our episode.
Of course. Of course. Can't wait.
So as ever, thank you so much for listening to this special. Thank you, Shaila, for my very belated birthday invitation. It's always a joy. Join us next time as we do one more season special of Culture Talks.